Hello and welcome to the Shed Sounds Media YouTube channel. My name is Ian Beabout, and today I'm joined by two of my good buddies, Mike Lieto from New York and Jaco from Rovigo, Italy. How you guys doing?
Fine,
Good.
thank you.
Today we're going to be talking about the Bursting Out album, the live album from Jethro Tull, which has just been reissued in a expanded box set with remixes by Steven Wilson, Soundcheck recordings, and of course the famous Madison Square Garden broadcast. What we have here is three, I think, unique perspectives. I am the enthusiastic one. Jaco, you are the expert. You know everything there is to know. And
Okay.
Mike, you are the new guy.
Trying to make me nervous, man.
Yeah, you are the new guy.
Yes. This is the first time I've heard this album. Is this
Wow.
the remix? So hey, talk about new.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's a fresh
It is
perspective.
exciting.
I thought we would get started by doing a overview of this collection. So the majority of this live album was recorded in various venues on the band's German tour of 1978. With one exception, there are some recordings from Berne, Switzerland, which is a 24-track recording. The German concerts are 8-track recordings. What Ian Anderson did here, Ian Anderson, of course, being the flautist, the songwriter, acoustic guitarist, he does the business manager, everything. What he did is he set out to go out and record a live album, and he selected the tracks that he wanted to include and created the set list around that. And in reading the liner notes, this just blew my mind because, of course, he did. Ian Anderson doesn't do anything by mistake. Everything is a deliberate choice and calculated with this, and this is another reason why I love this stuff. But just a quick overview about the band. You know, we're talking about the classic lineup here. This is Ian Anderson, of course, Martin Barr on guitar, John Glasscock on bass, Dee Palmer on keyboards, John Evans on keyboards, and I think that covers it. Am I forgetting anyone?
Barlow, man.
Barrymore Barlow.
Yeah.
Yes, I was testing you. Barrymore Barlow on drums. Barrymore Conundrum Barlow on drums.
Greatest Jethro Tull drummer as far as I'm concerned, but that's
Oh,
just me.
absolutely, yeah.
This live album is a snapshot, I think, of the perfect time within the band's history, because this is right after the Heavy Horses album, which is potentially their all-time greatest album. I think that's one aspect of, maybe it's genius, maybe it's luck that this captures Tull at their absolute zenith before they kind of imploded just a tour later. So let's. So what do we think of the Bursting Out album, guys? Just in general, let's just do a general conversation to start.
Well, I think it's a great live album. Again, coming from this as a new time listener, like you kind of touched on, this does capture a band that has been on the road together for several years, and it really shows. These guys, play the crud out of this material. It is awesome. The band's really tight. I was pretty blown away from the first listen at how tight they all are, and they just rip through this material. It's great. There's a lot of material, and it covers it's not just Heavy Horses centric. There's a lot of Heavy Horses, but there's also some older songs. It's a good mix of Jethro Tull material, I think. And I do appreciate that it has a somewhat slight emphasis on Heavy Horses and Songs from the Wood, because Songs from the Wood is my favorite Jethro Tull album. I just love the whole folk trilogy, as they call it. It's my favorite Tull. But yeah, I love it. I think it's great. The quick impressions. I also love these boxes that they release these in. I only have a few of these, but they're just such a nice presentation, and the way they hide the Blu-ray discs on the side here also is really clever. The discs are held well in the plastic. There's a really comprehensive booklet in here. It's 96 pages. I haven't read all of it.
These, of course, are DVDs before anyone in the audience gets pissed off because...
Yes, they're DVDs.
Yeah.
Yes, they're DVDs, not Blu-ray. They're DVDs.
Yeah,
Thank
everyone is pissed about something nowadays. So.
Yes, totally. They find something to get angry at. But yeah, the booklet's really comprehensive. It's 2 full interviews with Ian Anderson, plus with the road crew of the tour, and also about Madison Square Garden. It's really great. If you're like a diehard Jethro Tull fan, this is like a must-have for you guys.
Yeah, I think so too. I've been Jethro Tull bootleg collector in the past, and there are periods of their career from 1971 to 1974 where bootlegs are all we have, and that would have been a good time to release a live album, because I think that's probably when Jethro Tull were at their best in a concert setting, like in 1973, 74. 78 was a very good year for the band because they were tight. Palmer was in the band. John Glasscock was in the band. This was a good lineup. The set list is pretty good, because I think the only things that are missing are This Was, Benefit, and A Passion Play from the set list. And you get stuff from the past albums, the most recent albums. Bursting Out works well as, if you're new to Jethro Tull, you may as well start from here. I think it's a good introduction to the band, and it's a good testament to how good Jethro Tull were on stage. I know people who are not big fans of the late 70s output who absolutely love this live album, and who think those live versions do trim a little bit of the fat of the studio versions. I mean, not that I necessarily agree, but I know some who have problems with the studio version of Minstrel in the Gallery because they find it too long. And this live version is more like compact, more up to the point. It's not necessarily better, but it works well in a live setting, I think.
When I first became a Jethro Tull fan, number one, I wasn't that interested in live material, and that's always been a theme for me. I've always been far more interested in studio material for whatever reason, been drawn to that specifically. But I was always disappointed in this album because A Passion Play was my favorite record, and they didn't play any Passion Play material. And I was like, oh, but I want a Thick as a Brick tour recording. I want a Passion Play tour recording. And having gone back and listened through these albums in the past couple of years, especially through these deluxe reissue programs, have kind of changed my perspective on Tull history. And then also going back and listening to bootlegs of the 72, 73 tours. And what you talk about trimming the fat. I find those early tours to be extremely heavy on improvisation that sometimes doesn't go anywhere. And I like, and this is my opinion, this isn't objective, but I like that by 1978, they were less improvisationally based, and it was more song based. And nowadays, I think I may rate the Folk Trilogy higher than the early 70s albums anyway. And we do get Thick as a Brick. We get a 12-minute, 13-minute version of Thick as a Brick that's just kills. Like it might be my favorite arrangement, even though I love the album version. I love the full-length version. I like the concise 12-minute burst of basically of side one of the album that we get here. I do like that we get a number of older songs, like After No Lullaby, we get Sweet Dream. We get a great version of A New Day Yesterday, which I think has Anderson in top form vocally.
Oh, his voice rocks. Yeah.
His voice rocks, indeed. And, you mentioned the Minstrel in the Gallery thing. That's another thing that always bugged me about this album, is that they don't do the jam. Yeah, that's like my favorite part of Minstrel in the Gallery, and always was. On this more recent listen, I was like, oh, wait a minute, they cut that, but then now they have Conundrum, which is a far more incredible workout, mind-blowing instrumental workout, and I kind of feel all right with that. Another thought that I wanted to add, and we're kind of drifting into talking about different versions of this, but I like that this expanded version is an expanded version of the album with some of those tracks that were left off the original due to time constraints placed back in. And I remember as a young Tull fan listening to this version of Songs from the Wood, and I don't think I had any idea what editing was. I didn't really understand what editing was. And I thought, why did they cut out all my favorite parts of Songs from the Wood? Why wouldn't they perform those? And I like that when we hear this version, it's the full length version. And man, they had that song under their fingers at this point, and they could do it in their sleep. And it's so compelling performance-wise.
Since you mentioned Ian Anderson being in top form vocally on A New Day Yesterday, there's a surround mix on this beautiful thing here. And if you isolate the center channel, which is where Ian Anderson's flute and vocals are, you can find out where he redid his own stuff on the studio. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, according to my notes, all the vocals on the flute on A New Day Yesterday were done in the studio.
Oh, wow.
Which is too bad. But it was capable of doing that live. I know because I did collect bootlegs.
When I did my review of this, I had a whole section where I talked about overdubs in live albums. And I think this is an interesting discussion point because when I was growing up and listening to live records, I was like, no, I want everything to be raw. I want it to be fly on the wall. I want to hear all the mistakes. But as I've kind of grown older and a lot of these reissues have come out and we hear the mistakes quite often now, I've gone to the other way. I've started to think, well, it is a live album. And it's almost a contradiction of terms because, live means in the moment, album means it's recorded, it's prepared. So I think that a live album needs to be doctored a little bit because it's something that has to stand up over listen again and again and sit by other albums. A live performance is a totally different thing. When you go see a live performance, I think that those mistakes, those human elements are welcome. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? Are you okay with overdubs on live albums?
It kind of depends on like the context, right? For at least for me, it's like overdubs are fine. Like you said, and rather well, is that it's a live album, right? So like it stands in the catalog with the other studio albums, and an album has typically some sort of studio wizardry to help make it a cohesive package, right? Well, like, but like, again, on the other side, it depends on the group. Like if I'm listening to something with like it's improvisation based, like I've been listening to a lot of Live Crimson lately, and a lot of that material is very improv heavy and it's changing nightly. I kind of want to hear everything presented that was at the show. I don't mind if like, the vocal track was, recorded poorly, so we overdubbed it. That's fine. But if it's like the notes that were played that night for whatever improvisation, I'd like to hear that. Mm-hmm. But I think overdubs do help it. Like the Roxy and Elsewhere album is an album with overdubs, and it's a masterpiece. I think that's like maybe the best record bar none for me sometimes. And it's a live album with a ton of overdubs.
Frank Zappa didn't really, he didn't think of a live album as a good representation of what was happening on stage. He saw that as a product. So anything was fair game for him. I think he overdubbed the ending of A Kid Not Soft because he wanted to, not because it was performed incorrectly. But it's not the case with Jethro Tull, because a Jethro Tull show were basically the same every night, which is why collecting bootlegs is not really a rewarding experience with them if you keep collecting the same tour over and over again. I'm fine with overdubs.
I think that for the most part, I do prefer the live versions of Bursting Out to the studio counterparts, which is kind of odd for me. But I do think that that's a testament to the fact that Ian Anderson selected the best performances he could of these. And the one I want to point out is One Brown Mouse, which I have issues with. That's the only track, at least on the first disc, that I don't prefer to the studio version.
I don't necessarily prefer the live versions in general. I think of them as a different approach. Maybe they have more energy, but they do have less, details compared to the studio versions.
The reason why I prefer the studio version is the drumming.
The drumming.
There's something about this recording on the Bursting Out album that the drums sound really distant to me. Like they're not, even compared to other songs on the disc, the drums aren't really cutting as well. And I just feel like it's got a little bit more energy on the studio version.
There's a lot of stage noise on that one.
Is that what it is?
Even
is
on
it
the stereo
stage noise?
Mix. Yeah. Some hum.
There is
some
hum.
Weird frequencies. Yeah. I don't think there are overdubs at all on that one, which might be, I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know if it's true or not. but that may be the reason.
I like how the drums are mixed on this. I don't love it, but I do think like it's balanced for the most part pretty well with the rest of the band. But maybe in One Brown Mouse, because of the stage noise, it's kind of buried a little deeper.
It's buried.
Yeah, it's buried. But yeah, it's Barlow's kit sounds great, but it doesn't sound like huge. It's not as like blam in your face as maybe it could be, which is probably a good thing. Conundrum is awesome. I think Barrymore Barlow's drum solo is pretty amazing. He does some great tom work and foot pedal work. And I think this solo Neil Peart was listening to, because some of the stuff that he would do later on, like in the 80s and 90s during his solo features, I think are very much influenced by this, among other things. But this definitely, I was like, wow, okay, Peart was listening to this. It's great.
Yeah, the Rush guys were always vocal about their affinity for Jethro Tull, I think.
It's a very musical solo. You can like sing along to it.
Yeah, it's very melodic.
I
love that.
I like it too. The problem I have is that drum solos in general make me a little sleepy. And I have to say that as much as I like the drum solo and I'm impressed by it, I like everything else in the song better. Now, that it's credited as a Barrie Barlow piece. Did Barrie Barlow write it, or is it just credited as his drum solo?
I think he wrote the drum solo because it's a written drum solo. If you listen to the Songs on the Wood box set, they do a completely different instrumental, and the solo is basically the same. I think it's a Martin Barre instrumental with a Barrymore Barlow composed drum solo.
Cool.
That's
yeah.
Fascinating.
It is fascinating. I was wondering about that because that's one of the proggiest things on the disc, and it almost stands out from everything else around it because you can tell that it's not Ian Anderson's writing. Same for Quatrain, which gets stuck in my head like crazy.
I was gonna say Quatrain sounds very similar in a weird way.
And those are the tracks that got cut from the single CD version of Bursting Out, like in the 80s, which is not a good idea, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's whack.
Yeah, to cut off the only two songs that are exclusive to the album. Great idea.
And Sweet Dream.
Sweet Dream too? Wow.
Yeah, they cut it out. Yeah, wow. Do not go and buy that version. It's out of print, so don't even look for it.
Here's my spiel on the remix. I'm, of course, the only one here who's listening to it in surround sound. And so I have kind of a unique perspective on that particular aspect. But the way that it's mixed is like you're sitting in the audience, but the audience has a quadraphonic or surround sound system set up. Like there's speakers in the back as well as the front. And a lot of times it's actually ordered in the stage setup. So on the left, you get mostly D's keyboards with a little bit of bass. You hear a little bit of bass coming out of the left channel, which is odd that it works as well as it does. The center channel is all Ian Anderson, his acoustic, his voice, his flute, but occasionally you will hear a little bit of a guitar solo shift over into the center channel, and then it'll go back. And then on the right channel, you have Martin Barre and John Evan. And the interesting thing is that you can tell spatially where Martin is standing and John Evan. Like if you close your eyes, you can tell spatially, and it feels like they're sitting right in front of you. But then in the back, you not only get audience noise and ambience, but sometimes the keyboards kind of drift into the back, or like a little bit of guitar or whatever. And when the drums come in, you can hear the toms coming out of the top channels in the Atmos setup. And so they really cut. I wanted to point to a particular track on here that if you guys were at my house today, this would be one of the first things I would demonstrate my surround system on, and that's Skating Away on the Thin Ice of a New Day, because that is one of the best uses of the soundstage I've heard on any recording. Everything is really well separated out, and like whenever you hear some electric guitar, often it'll go from front to back. And then when you get to like the flute solo improvisation, Ian sounds like he's standing in front of you, and all that snorting and sniffing and all that horrible shit he did to his voice. You can hear it. Well, that's how he screwed his voice up, I think, was that flute solo, doing that for 15 years. But you can hear the echoes in the back, like bouncing off the walls and coming at the back of your head. And I think that, for Steven Wilson taking years to feel comfortable to do live mixing, I think it's a shame because this is one of the most creative uses of surround technology I've heard to date. Now, you guys can come in with comments on the stereo mix because I haven't spent all that much time with it other than the Soundcheck recordings.
Well, all I can say is that I think it's an upgrade to the original mix, which had its charms, but also had quite a bit of problems. It sounded really boxy and compressed. However, there are a couple of problems with it. And the biggest problem is that some of the performances do not match with the original album. And that's a big problem, like for starting from Quatrain to the end of the show. Since those were basically the Berne versions, I think what they did was taking the multi-tracks as they had transferred them back in 2018 and had Steven Wilson remix them. The original Aqualung solo is not on the remix, and it's an inferior performance. And I know they did that because, being the nerd that I am, I did try to line them up, and they stay in sync, so it's the same digital transfer. And that's my biggest pet peeve with it. That track was supposed to be recorded on Berne, but the version is different. Mm-hmm. So the guitar solo is not the only thing that's different. I think the drumming behind it is also. So it's a live performance. It's not like they redid that part in the studio. Strange things happening, I guess. It does bother me because the original Aqualung solo on the live album was perfection. Like, it was Martin Barre at his best. And on this version is kind of struggling a little. Like, there's a little bit where I don't think he knows what to do next. And you can hear that. And I do think it's an inferior performance.
I think I heard that also in the improvisation. Like, he sounds good, but there's there's a questioning to his playing. I never heard the original solo, but I definitely want to hear it now.
There's also a little bit, like on the original album, Quatrain started with a guitar sustain note, which was a great effect. Like, he had the guitar sustaining and then he started the riff. And on the remix, it's a different performance and it just goes into it. And I don't like it as much. Yeah. I mean, those are quite biggest for me. But overall, I'm still listening to the remix because it sounds best to me, and it has the extra tracks that are really good. So for the first time, I think it's a tie for me for the between the original and the remix. I'm glad to have both of them.
The Aqualung thing doesn't bother me that much, and this is going to get me flamed in the comments, but I don't love that song. I never have really liked it that much.
It's overplayed.
I like it.
I'm closing the conversation. I'm leaving.
In addition to it being overplayed, I don't think it's very representative of what I love about Jethro Tull. And I love the eclecticness. It's their song that got popular, but it's not that representative. I think Locomotive Breath is a much stronger song. And that, for me, is the classic. That's the one that I can hear again and again and again. And I don't get sick of it. When I listened to it, I thought, oh, that's a ripping solo. Like, that's great. Like, that was like my favorite part of the song was when the solo came. It always is, honestly. When the solo come on, but I'm not that familiar with the original version. So with that caveat, I never listened to the Bursting Out album that much growing up because, as I said earlier, I was always disappointed in it because I wanted Passion Play stuff on it. And so coming to this, it's almost like a new Jethro Tull album for me. So I don't necessarily have these issues. And when I compared the original mix to this, back when I did my review about a month ago, I found the remix one hands down. For issues you're talking about, issues where Ian overdubbed two performances on top of each other, and it sounded kind of strange, or weird use of delay or reverb that didn't sound natural. And I think that overall, this is a much more balanced presentation of the material. And I think that Steven's work has managed to sound very vintage. I can tell that I'm listening to something sourced from a tape. It sounds warm. It sounds clear. But at the same time, I think his work is so strong on this that I can't really tell the differences between the sources. And the 8-track recordings from Nowheresville, Germany, compared to the Berne Festival, they don't sound that different to me.
One Brown Mouse, of course.
Except for One
except
Brown
for
Mouse.
One Brown Mouse.
Except for that song. One popular misconception, I guess, about the Bursting Out album is that the entirety of it was recorded in Berne, and this is an idea that I think came out of when the Heavy Horses box set was released. And it was like, oh, Live and Berne, that's the same thing as Bursting Out. We don't need Bursting Out. And that's what a lot of fans like on the internet were saying, was like, I don't need to buy this. I already have the Berne set. But the truth is that a very low percentage of these recordings are actually from Berne. And it makes it even more confusing that the introduction by Claude Nobbs is from Berne. And then as soon as you hit No Lullaby, you're somewhere completely different. You're in a different country, different venue. Since a lot of these German dates were on 8-track, they actually piped in the audience noise from Berne, Switzerland, because there was no mics in the audience. And when you listen to the Berne concert that's on the Heavy Horses box, I can identify the audience noise from the Bursting Out album. For instance, when we go into Sweet Dream on Berne, it doesn't start exactly when the audience roars, but on Bursting Out, it does. Right as the audience roars, we go right into Sweet Dream. But, that's one of the tricks that Ian Anderson used to make it sound seamless, is that he piped in the Berne audience in the background. And so what I wanted to mention was that the Berne tracks that are included on the Bursting Out set, I feel are much better mixed and sound a lot better than the Berne show. And I listened to a little bit of the Berne show, and it is quite different. Like the approach on Sweet Dream especially is completely different from the Bursting Out album. My thoughts are that it's a little bit less punchy sounding, and you have two keyboard players and you can barely hear them in Jaco Joksic's mix. And that's something that I feel is improved, because here, at least talking about the surround mix, you can hear the two keyboardists kind of floating into the back of the room, and you can feel their presence at all times, and it sounds very detailed. But I think, Jaco, you had some thoughts as to why, and you're not the guy responsible for the mixing, just to be clear. So don't send your hate mail to Jaco. Yeah, it's a different Jaco. That's Jaco with two Ks. But you had some thoughts on that. So
a much more successful Jaco, if I may add. Well, a friend of mine, shout out to him, Johnny, pointed out that since the Thick as a Brick fiasco, when Peter Mew did the mastering and basically ruined the dynamics of the Steven Wilson remix, there has been no mastering on those boxes. And he thinks that the Jaco mixes were done with the mastering in mind. Like, they probably need an extra step to sound better. And I kind of agree with that. I haven't tried that myself, but I do buy that, because the fidelity is there. It's just, the equalization that it's a little bit off sometimes.
Yeah.
I do like the way Berne sounds like. I do prefer the Steven Wilson remix, because objectively, I think it's much more easier on the ears and much more balanced. Well, I don't think he did a bad job, but he probably wasn't. I mean, I don't want to say he wasn't the right. He was the right man for mixing them, because Steven Wilson didn't want to mix live material. But he should have been mastered then, if that was the real issue.
Yeah.
And one thing that I want to be, let me be, what's the word for it? The Berne show, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for it, because that's the reason my name is on the Heavy Horses box set. Go check it. You will find my name on it. And it's because I was one of the two people responsible for the ticket of the Berne concert that you see on the DVD while it's playing. I was asked by our friends Pat Kent and Charlie Kenny, I think you pronounce his name like that, to find permissions to use a scan of the ticket that was on the net. I couldn't contact that guy, but I remember I knew someone who had attended the Berne show, so I contacted him, and his name is Aldo Pancotti, but his name and my name are on the box set because of that. So thank you for including the Berne show on the Heavy Horses box set.
And also, for those of you who are saying, I don't want to buy this because it costs $100 secondhand, guess what? In less than a month, It's going to be reissued, so go snatch that up.
No excuses.
So included in this, I forgot to call it the Inflated Edition. I've been calling it the Expanded Edition, but included in this Inflated Edition of Bursting Out, is the a Steven Wilson stereo remix of the Soundcheck recordings. They are obviously only prepared in stereo, not surround. But these are previously unreleased, unheard recordings. And what's fascinating to me about them is that they are a window into Ian Anderson's working methods, because he used these sound checks not only to check levels and, do a little rehearsal and such, but also to record demos. And that's how he describes them in the set. Is it was like, well, we can't try asking 6 guys to go to the studio after we've just done a tour of Europe and, forget it. So instead, we had our recording equipment set up. We tested the recording. We used the opportunity to record 2 tracks, Botanic Man and 4-Wheel Drive Low Ratio. Now, my slight criticism with this box is that I wish that the DVDs had put the Soundcheck recordings together. I understand why they did that on the CDs. They broke them up over the 2 discs. I do wish that they had been included together on the DVD and just able to play through. But my feelings on these Soundcheck recordings is that they're not the most exciting aspect of this box set, aside from those 2 that I mentioned. And the reason for that is that they tend to be very safe performances that are, all the parts are played extremely well. The tempos are very average. Because obviously these guys don't want to perform. Like they want to save that energy for the show. That in itself is fascinating, but I don't know what the replay value of these other tracks are.
I think the main attraction to those are the fact that they do sound really, really good. Like they sound like studio recordings. The performances are not really exciting, but they are very, very clean. It's like a live in a studio version.
Yeah,
like a BBC session, which makes them very fascinating. But I'd rather listen to the versions on the live album itself. And something that we forgot to say about the remix are which one were the other tracks, and Heavy Horses is one of them. And of course, the version on the remix is much better.
I really like the Soundcheck recordings. I kind of agree too. Like, I love how clean they are. This, like you said, they're like a BBC session almost. The band just rocking through the material. It's not like the most riveting performances, but I think they're very clean and they're very good. It is a sound check after all. So they're probably on stage for the first time trying to get a feel of, what the hall sounds like, what they sound like in the hall, fixing any issues. I think they're fascinating. I think they're a great inclusion to this box set. We would be remiss without them, I think, especially because of the unique tracks, which we're going to get to in just a moment.
Yeah,
I think it's really fascinating that due to the fact that due to how they recorded these are the only surviving tapes that we have of because the shows themselves, once they were transferred to 24 tracks, I think they were either wiped or discarded. So the Soundcheck recordings are the only thing that survived, which is pretty fascinating.
And the only thing that we can identify to this is the venue, this is the date, because they didn't, when they were putting together the Bursting Out album, they converted the 8-track tapes to 24-track, but nobody kept any notes on what the sources were. And that's why we run into these issues, like you mentioned earlier, where some of the performances are different. And that's because nobody really knows. And it's kind of a similar conundrum to what Joe Travers faces in trying to reassemble these multi-tracks that Frank cannibalized and repurposed throughout the years. Some thoughts on these 2 these instrumental demo recordings. Botanic Man was written for a TV series, which is not, it's rare, but it's one of the 2 instances of this happening in the Tull back catalog, because of course there was the song recorded for the Blood of the British documentary or TV show or whatever that was, but so this one kind of stands outside of the Tull canon because yes, it does fit in thematically with Heavy Horses with the folksy setting, but it's essentially a song that was written for another purpose than recording a Jethro Tull album. Now, I do really like
Bellamy.
this. David Bellamy, yeah. I do like the stripped back version of this, which sounds like it's pretty much just Ian on flute, John Evan on piano, and maybe Barrie Barlow playing a little bit of.
I think that's Palmer.
Is that Palmer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. But yeah, so it's a stripped back version. There is a studio version of this on the Heavy Horses box set, which is very pretty and much more elaborate and has some different flute stuff on it. But I actually do enjoy the inclusion of this. I like the simplicity of it. I like the stripped back nature of it, especially since so much of this material is very elaborated in the arrangements. And then I think the next track is far more interesting.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
that's because I love the A album and always have. And this particular track, Four Wheel Drive Low Ratio, is one that I've liked for a long time. And, like when you live in rural West Virginia, you'll see, like where I grew up, you'll see cars flying by that have the 4WD low ratio on the side of it, like it's a flag. And so it's like every time one of those would go by, and it's like 4-wheel drive, low ratio, like for 20 years. What's interesting about this version of it, to me, is that it's very stripped back. Some of the sections are very different, and you have Ian Anderson, what sounds like Ian Anderson playing electric guitar on the left channel, which is something that we haven't heard since the Benefit album in 1970.
I think
I haven't heard much
too.
of.
Wow.
Is he on Aqualung?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Actually, someone pointed out to me, I don't remember who it was, maybe my friend Johnny or Pat Busby. Someone pointed out to me that on the booklet of the Bursting Out album, there's a picture of Ian Anderson playing electric guitar.
There is.
Yeah.
Yep, there is.
That's awesome.
So the other thing I wanted to comment was that, and we keep talking about Zappa here, but this song kind of reminds me of Frank Zappa. This version of it kind of reminds me of Frank Zappa, and I think it's the guitar tone and maybe some of the chordal choices.
On this album, especially, Barre's tone is it's great. He's a really good ear for guitar tone, like Frank does. It's different tones, obviously, but they both are excellent choices of sound for guitar. It's a good showcase for that.
I think the most interesting thing for me is that those two tracks were never performed live. So it's interesting to hear them like in a kind of live setting. Botanic Man, it's pretty pleasant. It's never been a top Tool track to me. So I think 4-wheel drive is much more interesting. And it's the fact that it's one of the classic Tool lineups playing something that from the A period that fascinates me the most. But then it's so different that it's not really, except for the chorus, it's not really the same song in a way. So it was good to hear. I listen to it sometimes, but again, it's something for us, meaning the freaks.
Botanic Man, I think, is beautiful. I've heard the Heavy Horses bonus track before this, but I forgot, quite honestly, because I heard it once before this. I think I prefer the Heavy Horses version very slightly, just because of the strings, and it really amplifies the lyrics. Yeah, it amplifies the lyrics and how pretty the song is. But I think 40W is a completely different song here. Like, besides, like you said, the chorus, it's very different, and I appreciate that. It's so cool. I like A a lot. Also, I think A is a great record. It's very different, but it's great. But it's really different. It's like this is two different songs, and I think it's so cool to hear this particular version of Jethro Tull playing something like that, which is 2 years before it actually gets put on an album and released. I think that's great.
And it's not the only example of that, because
that's right.
I was about to say that. Yeah,
you get Working John, Working Joe as an outtake on the Songs from the Wood box set. So it's interesting to me, and I don't want to talk about A too much, but a lot of Tull fans treat A like it's this huge departure, but a lot of the pieces have roots in Tull's arguably most commercially successful period. The final disc, and this is something that I consider to be very much an extra to this collection. It's not really the main focus, and that is the live at Madison Square Garden performance. And this is famously one of the first international live broadcasts. And there was like a lot of chances that this could go wrong. And there was like all kinds of like new energy that kind of went into this. And perhaps the thing that I want to talk about right from the start is that John Glasscock isn't in the band here. This is Tony Williams on bass, not that Tony Williams, but the bass player.
Make that joke.
Oops, sorry, I took that away from you. But the thing to know about this set is that it's an hour and a half, and the TV broadcast comprises about an hour of it, maybe a little bit less than an hour, but it's the very center. So it's like the center.
Minutes, I think.
Yeah.
And my impression of this, because this is a legendary Tull performance, and I remember being a kid and watching Thick as a Brick from Madison Square Garden on the 20th anniversary VHS tape, and this being one of my early Tull experiences. So it's kind of a big deal to have this in such great quality and to have it complete. And I know we've had it complete before, but this is a better version, and we'll get to why in a moment.
Much better.
But my thoughts on this are that when the cameras are off, it's kind of an average Tull performance. It's okay, but then when the cameras come on, it's like, oh my God, this is Tull at their height. And there's something about, I think, the knowledge that, okay, we're on, now we got to perform. And to see that, and when the experience when you're watching it is like, okay, this is an all right version of Heavy Horses. But then when the cameras come on and you see Ian with the hat and the vest or whatever he's wearing and he's conducting the band, I get chills when I watch that, because there's just something about, oh, now it's coming to life. And we're seeing something. But the point is that the center of this, the video portion, I think is one of the best things that exist of Tull. And now with this new mix, I think it might be the best sounding classic Tull document that we have. And, Stephen Wilson did a lot to clean up these tapes, which I'm sure we'll pick apart and discuss. But maybe you guys could tell me, what are your impressions of the MSG gig?
Well, to me, it was always the definitive Jethro Tull video. In spite of the fact that John Glasscock wasn't there, although Mr. Williams did a really good job, we can say that. Accounting for the fact that it isn't even a bass player, he's a guitar player.
Yeah.
So he did a great job, I think. I have revised this opinion since when we had the Landover 77 video on the Soundcheck. That one is now my favorite Jethro Tull video document. But the Madison Square Garden performance is really special. There's a special atmosphere to it, which is probably why Ian Anderson doesn't like it that much, because he says he's watching the video and he looks very self-conscious, which is not how I am perceiving him at all. Like, to me, he looks very confident. He's a great frontman. It's a great video. I do remember seeing this on Italian TV. Well, not in '78, of course, but I do remember watching a broadcast of it, like in the late '90s when I was a small child. So it's been making the rounds for quite a few times, and this version looks fantastic and sounds fantastic. Although I do not agree that this is Stephen Wilson's best live mix, and we'll get to that later.
I have never heard or seen this performance before, and it is rocking. It's like, I agree with Ian. Like, once the cameras are rolling, it's phenomenal. I think this is the best Thick as a Brick I've ever heard. It's killer performance. And I was drawn. Ian says that he's very much self-conscious here, and like they were sure, it's like almost was a disaster because they weren't sure if things were actually rolling, and they had to leave the stage after Heavy Horses to come back to do the film, which is really like jarring for a concert. But But my God, they sound great. And I was really drawn to Ian as a front man too, as he is all over that stage. He's like magnetic. Like I'm trying to watch the other guys, but then I keep getting pulled towards Ian doing something, or Ian playing flute, or he's just like prancing around over here. It's like I can't keep my eyes off this guy. He's amazing.
Actually, sorry if I interrupt you, but there's a bit on Thick as a Brick where, much as I love Ian Anderson, he is kind of annoying me a little bit when John Even is doing the piano thing and he steps in front of me. Oh, come on, dude.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
But otherwise, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's ripping. I also, the only other notes I have as a first impression are, one, that Locomotive Breath is smoking as hell on this performance. That's an unbelievable performance of that tune. And the John Evan on keyboards, and well, this made me laugh too. He's in like an ice cream suit, but then like he's wearing this suit and doing this like beaming smile at the audience the whole time. It reminded me a lot of Cardiacs. Like, I wonder if those guys were like, maybe we could do something like that. But instead of having like a beaming, like kind of creepy smile, add it with makeup, and then our suits are tatted. It's almost like the same kind of stage presence.
I thought it was like Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's also has that to it for sure. Yeah. It kept cracking me up. He's just like, playing piano all of a sudden, like at the audience, like, man, this guy's a riot.
He's great.
Here to sell ice cream. Yeah.
I love it. And he plays some beautiful stuff too.
He's a killer pianist. It's a treat, the Madison Square Garden show. It's a total treat.
The reason this is not my favorite Steven Wilson live mix is because that fucking asshole with the hair on can be heard throughout the concert. It's very fucking annoying. And so I would have like lowered the audience a little bit. But aside from killing, yes, it's a very good mix. I'm talking about the stereo mix. I don't like the way he edited the show for the third CD, so I had to rip the stereo mix from the DVD to enjoy it. But I mean, this is the inflated edition. We don't want to inflate the price like we had in an extra disc, so I guess I can live with that.
There is some other cool stuff on this set. Like you get an early version of Kelpie. I like that the flute solo is a little bit different. Instead of Barrie, we get Kelpie, and then the Songs from the Wood that we get on this version is actually, I think, my preferred arrangement. I like it when we come in halfway through and then go back to the front of the song. It wouldn't work so well. It wouldn't work so well as like the opener of an album. So like the album arrangement works best for the album, but I like this in the context of a live show. And this is, of course, the same arrangement that they played at the LA Forum in 1980 with Eddie Jobson, which is iconic to me.
That, by the way, that is, I think, Steven Wilson's best Jethro Tull live mix, in my opinion, at least.
I have issues with it, and
I know.
This will be cut, I guess, but my issue with the LA Forum show is that the flute tone sounds this big. It's like almost non-existent, and I think it's the way it was recorded. And I don't know if that's when he was using the face mic or whatever, but I think that the flute sounds much richer. Now, I'm a flute player, so I'm specifically attuned to these kind of issues, whereas you guys are maybe more attuned to the drums. So that's like a personal thing.
Things actually kind of went wrong during the performance. Like there were some technical problems, and Ian Anderson even jokes about it.
Like, I think the Russians shot us down there.
Yeah. Aside from the asshole with the air horn, I think the Steven Wilson mix really blows away the Peter Mew mix. I didn't even keep the old DVD. I gifted it to my uncle. Shout out to him. He's the one who made me love Jethro Tull. So big shout out to him. What?
He's pulling out the old release.
I'm talking. That's rude.
I'm listening. Shout out to your uncle. That's amazing.
I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to do. Oh, shit, man.
Uh-oh.
Oh, dude, come on. That's weak.
Been disrupted.
You can't even find it, man. Yeah. Well, you're going to have to cut this.
And there it went. That's a great shirt.
Look, dude, you distracted me, so I didn't keep talking.
Well, finish what you were saying, but I just wanted to show that I do have the previous
Yeah, I saw you getting up and pulling away. I said, okay, there's a earthquake or something. I don't know.
It said, hold on, the earth is crumbling.
I don't know how you're going to edit all of this, but it's up to you. You decide how to do it.
Poorly.
I think anyway. I think the previous version, the Peter Mew mix, wasn't satisfying. I think it's Peter Mew, right? Can you check?
It is Peter Mew.
Yeah, I don't think his mix was that great, which is also a complaint I have for the Carnegie Hall 1970 show, which I think I would hope that Steven Wilson will get to, but I'm not sure he ever will. It was a nice release, but the new one is much better.
I agree. I haven't listened to this in a long time, but I did notice when we were watching this the other night that when the flute solo comes on, you can still hear a little bit of artifacting from that feedback problem.
Yeah.
But when the band kicks in, you can't hear it at all. And yeah, it does spoil Anderson's joke about the Russians shooting them down, because you're like, what? I'm sure, Mike, you had never seen it before. And you're like, what the heck's he talking about? But it's because on the original version, there's like this really horrible screeching wail for like 2 straight minutes.
Oh God. Yeah. I
really...
assumed there was some sort of audio defect or video defect that like maybe that was in the monitors that we couldn't hear, but yikes.
No, it was really loud. And I used to have, before that was released, I used to have a version recorded from the BBC, and it's even worse. The way it went on the air, it's even worse. Yeah.
And that's maybe one slight criticism, is that they didn't include the original broadcast mix on this like they did the flat transfers of the album. But is that really that big of a deal? Because this
I don't think it's worthy. I don't think it's worthy. It wasn't a very good mix.
This is like a bonus.
It's a bonus,
like,
exactly.
For me, it's
an
a
extra
bonus. So I don't think you need the flat transfer. It's great to have the original album as a flat transfer, because this is a package for this album. But that's a nice bonus that he remixed it. I think it's perfect the way it is.
I agree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we think, boys, about this release?
Well, first of all, it's a great package. I thought when this was announced, I thought, okay, this is like the cream. I now think it's an essential part of this series, a much deserved release. The only thing that worries me is that they did this one, and they have hinted on a New Day magazine that there might be a version of Living in the Past coming, and I would want the series to progress instead. But that's really the only thing that worries me. As for this thing of beauty here, there is everything you will need about this album. There's a flat transfer. There's a great remix. A remix that it's different than the original, so you may have some fun with it. There's a great concert in video. The booklet is fantastic. You really get into the period. I mean, there's the roadie, Anthony Freeman, an article that will really send you to how it was to be on the road with Jethro Tull. So go get it. That's all I can say.
As somebody who's collected all these box sets to date, these are a special event for me. Whenever one of these comes out, it's like, okay, stop everything, cancel my appointments. I need a weekend. I need a weekend to absorb all this. And every one of them has been like that, has been really special. And I know that when this was announced, I was like, gimme, because my main interest in this is the surround mixes, the 5.1 surround mixes. And I enjoy the 5.1 surround mixes of the live material on Songs from the Wood, the Landover 1977 show, as well as the Berne 1978. But I also like what Steven Wilson is able to do with live material. I like the creativity that he brings. And there was already a little sample of this on Slipstream, because you get Sweet Dream. That's the same performance that's on the Slipstream video on the A set. And so that really kind of whet my appetite, as well as the 1980 LA Forum show, which, aside from my feelings on the way the flute was recorded, I do think is an excellent presentation overall. So I was like, yeah, I want vintage Tull in my surround sound library. But the other thing about that is that all of the shows that we've gotten thus far have been warts and all shows. And I like that this one is more of a, like I said earlier, a live album. And I think that that alone is something that I'm going to want to play more than those other shows, because I like that it's something that's been prepared, that sits against the studio catalog and sounds good every time you play it. The other really nice thing about this is that I like the inclusion of the MSG show. I like that it's been cleaned up. And because I know when Heavy Horses came out, you and I, Jaco, were like, are they going to include MSG? What kind of show are they going to include, or all that? So yeah, I like having this here. I like it that it's the only pure live Jethro Tull box set that we have. We've never really had anything quite like that before. And so I think it's one of the best ones. I think it's really special. And it's something that sets it apart from all the other studio boxes. So that's my feeling. My feeling is, if you're a Jethro Tull fan, you owe it to yourself to check this out. This is Tull at the height of their powers. This is Ian Anderson at his most energetic, his best voice.
I think that's more regarding what will come later. Like in the 70s, he rarely did a bad performance. Unfortunately, one of those less than great performances was captured on multi-track in Paris. Mm-hmm. But that's a one-off, because if you listen to Landover and Berne, the vocals are pretty strong.
As a new person to this album, I've never heard this until this came out, and we decided to do this, and I acquired it within a few days of release. It's a really excellent live album. It's a really great document of a band at arguably the peak of their powers at this point. They've been on the road for a few years. They're kicking ass. Great set list, great song selection, and the audio fidelity is awesome. You know, like these guys touched on, you get a lot of live material in some of the other box sets in this series, but this is a proper live album. So the sonics are a major step up and a real draw. If you want to get some live Jethro Tull, this is the package to get. But you get some rare audio nuggets too. You get a lot, the Madison Square Garden thing, which I think one of the big treats for me is the video. Also, you get to see the band performing, and you get this amazing book, which gives you pretty much, you know, takes you in a window into what it's like to be on tour with Jethro Tull and what it was like for the band at that point. It's a really excellent box set. Go get it if you haven't already. And it's also these kinds of box sets. I like the size. It's a perfect little book size. It fits well on the shelf. And also it's compared to some other box sets out there, it's pretty affordable. You know, you get 6 discs, and that's a lot of bang for your buck. 6 discs in a book for like $50. Yeah. I mean, that's hard to beat, quite honestly.
Until it gets out of print, so go get it.
Yeah, until it's out of print, so snag them up.
All right, guys. This was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you folks at home who've listened along, I hope you've enjoyed it too. Don't forget to leave a comment on the video and let us know, what do you think of the new remix of Bursting Out? Do you prefer it? Do you prefer the original mix? Is it somewhere in between? Also, don't forget to like the video, because that helps boost the video within the algorithm, and it will make me happy. And don't you want to make me happy? Don't you? Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because I'm preparing more content, hoping to put out 2 videos a week, which is grueling. It's hard to do, but I'm going to stick with it. Very soon, Mike and I are going to be talking about the King Crimson albums. We're going to be ranking the King Crimson albums. And then also keep an eye out, because the 3 of us, the next thing we're going to do as this little band is we're going to be talking about the Whiskey A Go-Go show from Frank Zappa. So, you want to hit the subscribe button and keep an eye out, an ear out for that, because it's going to be really fun. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was fun. Once again, my co-hosts today have been Jaco from Rovigo, Italy, and Mike from New York. Did you guys have anything to say before we head off?
Yeah, subscribe.
Yeah,
like,
hit the bell, you know, all that
comment.
Good stuff. We had a blast. We hope you guys did also.
It's like They Live when he puts on the glasses, but instead you just see comment, like, and subscribe.
Yes.
All right, guys, this was fun. We'll see you soon, okay? And you'll be hearing from me even sooner. Bye-bye.